Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life, the podcast. You're listening to Author's Corner, where we highlight and showcase our local authors. Today, I'm speaking to Christopher Eaddy, author of The Biology of Business, Why We Should Treat Our Businesses Like Our Bodies. And Christopher's book is not released yet, but it will be released soon. So today, we're going to be talking on the topic, the biology of business. Welcome, Christopher.
Hello, Myrna. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. All right. So let me give you guys a brief introduction. Christopher Eaddy, PhD, MBA, is a master life coach, corporate hands-on speaker and trainer dedicated to transforming both individuals and organizations. His passion is working with smart, ambitious people who want to discover their true greatness, including enhanced communication, the power of language, perception, rapport, and active listening, fearless personal leadership, or becoming the best version of themselves. Christopher has been leading transformations for Fortune 100 companies and C-suite executives. His work also includes overcoming barriers like stress, insomnia, phobias, etc. His passion is to help you build the life that you desire, which is what I'm trying to do as well. So the fact that we're life coaches and he's a master life coach, that's amazing. All right. So, Christopher, as we start off, I want to look at your book, The Biology of Business, Why We Should Treat Our Businesses Like Our Bodies. I find that it's a unique and intriguing concept. Where did that idea come from?
Well, it actually came from a combination of things and maybe a couple of events. I consider myself the luckiest person in the world, having been fortunate enough to go to college, and all my friends got very disciplined degrees, and I just kept getting degrees and varied them. And what that allowed me to do was to work in at least 7 legitimate careers, from government to law enforcement at the highest level, instruction, um, construction engineering, education, mental health, healthcare, sales, human resources.
Wow.
And I was able to do it at a much more impactful level because I think I took those careers as interests, not as discipline pathways. And it was during my work working at an emergency department while I was in nursing school where I had a friend come in and did all we could that night and lost him the next morning. And it was a wake up call for me. It was a wake up call to really live. And it was more about not the death, but the exploration. Like, okay, gosh, did I miss something here? How's that happen? And then I read a book shortly thereafter by a former coroner in New York, The 5 Ways We Die, because I
Wow.
was in a searching mode. And,
Mhm.
being a doctor, grew up in a very religious background, but I wanted to get some answers. And it led to a parallel initially that I call the 5 ways businesses die. And with a little development, we get to see the whole system. We get to see that it's a biological system. And for me, I was always the outsider, perhaps to my later benefit. I got to see all my careers from a very different perspective, a perspective of interest, again, not planned, and it let me see inside. It let me see the intricacies of hierarchy. It let me see the insides of organizations. And it was that perspective blended with what I saw in organizations. It caused me to realize, you know what, there's just not a lot of difference between organisms and organizations. They both have the same root word, but that really just set me down this path of curiosity. And during one of those times when I was working in a particular career in corporate America, I got really curious. Why is this business suffering? I knew, and they're already talking about cutbacks, and it just sent me down this path to really look at what's going on inside of corporate America, governments. Why are governments inefficient? Why are companies closing? And I got really invested in that list. And then it really just, I won't say it fell out of the sky. With a lot of research, I began to understand, and maybe from the psychologist perspective, that there's striking parallels between biological systems and the way they function and how businesses operate. Literally, just like our bodies, businesses have interconnected systems that have to work together in harmony if the business is going to thrive. And the concept from realizing that by applying biological principles like homeostasis and adaptation and feedback loops to the brain, et cetera, we get to create a healthier, more resilient business. The goal is to help leaders see their organizations as living entities or ecosystems that require care, balance, attention, if they want to sustain themselves and not be one of those businesses that have gone out of business.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Human biology was my most favorite subject in school. So I organs and organizations. I love it. So just out of curiosity, which is the heart? Where's the heart of the company?
Interesting.
Mhm.
I'll give you an example of how these organs actually parallel.
Okay.
I'll give you a simple one and then I'll give you one that's a little bit more detailed. These really make the point when we overlay that template of what I call biological principles and we apply them to real business or real world business scenarios. The first
Okay.
is the concept of homeostasis.
Okay.
You, as a biology person who just admired it, you understand homeostasis.
Right.
It's when any organism tries to keep itself stable.
Right.
That's why our bodies have temperatures and we try to regulate that temperature outside of a range. We're cold, we're hot, etc. And we adjust to different conditions for optimal survival. In a
Hmm.
business context, it's likened the same way. There has to be a balance for an adaptive organizational culture. For instance, a company that faces market changes, they got to be able to adapt without losing core values or vision. If they lose their way, they're no longer the company they were. It might involve balancing their innovation against their traditions or including agility or changing the structure. When they understand and apply homeostasis from a biological perspective to a business, they get to create an environment where change is managed effectively. That's what the body does,
Hmm.
keeping the organization stable and healthy over time. That's what we all thrive and strive for.
Okay.
The next example occurred with the company that I was hired to consult. Both of them were, in fact, and they pretty much experienced the same conditions. Both of them were experiencing financial difficulties. The problems that one was experiencing was because of market changes, but also because of hiring, bloated pays at in certain parts of the hierarchy, and all the typical kinds of things that you find in most companies that are struggling. Well, it was interesting because the other company decided to take a more empathetic approach, and the difference was probably 50,000 people. But if you look at things in a general sense, if it worked really well over here, it may not work holistically here, but why not try it and see, at least in a small sample? And what the companies did was this company went directly to layoffs because of investors, and it created a very detrimental environment where there were gaps in their productivity because the way they announced it, the way it occurred, and then people didn't know whether they were going to be on the hit list next, as opposed to this CEO who went to his company and said, literally, he and his team went to every region where they're global, 11,000 employees startup. And they sat down with the employees over 2 days and said, this is where we are. This is what we've got to get to in 13 months. Or the investors could pull the plug on us and then, none of us are employed. Interestingly, this company struggled. I mean, it is still struggling to recover from those layoffs, similar to what happened with Spotify. Didn't realize how much they were missing with the people when they let people go. This company, after 2% growth year over year for 3 years, grew by 11% in 13 months. I like to liken that to what happens in the human body. If I say cancer, we understand what that means. And
Hmm.
interestingly, what does the body do? The body goes and recruits cells that can fight and says, hey, look, we're being intruded. We need to do something. And what
Right.
happens is any cell that can fight does.
Right.
And a lot of people don't need medicine. They get over it because their body fights it. And that's what this CEO did. He invested in the cells, the employees, the muscles,
Mm.
the management structure, and said, hey, look, we're being intruded by outside forces. This is what we have to do to get there. The benefit over here was not only growth for the company and the investors, but that was good for the employees too,
I like
because
that.
this CEO,
Yeah.
obviously empathetic.
Yeah, I like that. Likening employees to cells. I like that. Okay. All right. So my question was, what's the heart and what's the brain? If we're gonna, are you talking about those kind of organs?
Absolutely. Every
Okay.
major organ in the body, every cellular structure in the
Mhm.
body, to include, the integumentary, which includes your skin, etc.
Right.
They are they serve a purpose. And just to give you a couple of examples, when we
Hmm.
talk about skin, what is the skin designed to do? First,
Protect.
defend,
Right. Defend and
protect.
protect.
Exactly.
Right. Hmm.
Well, don't
Hmm.
we have those structures in companies, don't we? Badge systems,
Okay.
passwords,
Ah,
dedicated
okay.
servers,
All right.
legal.
Okay.
So all of those protections are there inside of a
Mm.
business,
All
and they
right. I'm
count
getting
in the
you.
same way.
Hmm.
How do we structure those so that we're not self-deprecating ourselves? How
Okay.
do we, where's the lotion, so to speak? What is it that we're doing with these particular parts of the business? How are these? I burned my hand on a very, I was cooking some meat, breakfast meat in the oven. I never cook in this particular pan. It's a cast iron pan. Never cook in it. And I grabbed it. And
Ooh.
interestingly, I've been suffering since February with issues with where it burned, where it blistered, where it scabbed, et cetera. Now it's splitting. So, I'm using all these different creams. And now I'm thinking, okay, what's going on inside of my integumentary system? And the way that I react to what's going on in my own body is
Hmm.
no different than the way that
Hmm.
leadership should respond inside of a company.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when we talk about the heart, it's interesting because if you or I had some kind of arrhythmia, right?
Right.
If our pulse was wrong, it just wasn't rhythmic over time, eventually that would cause some detriment to us, wouldn't it?
Right. Yes.
And not delving into it to find out what's going on, eventually it could be the death knell. The
Right.
interesting thing is there's no difference in a corporate environment. And what I liken it to as something that at least leadership, and I mean the CEO at the highest level, doesn't matter whether they're a CEO of a 15-person company or a 150,000 person company. If they don't understand the pulse of their company, that's a company that
Mm.
probably is on its
Yeah.
verge. It's
That's a
on
good
the
one.
verge of taking a path towards death.
Yeah, that's a
Because if
good
you
one.
don't, yeah, if you
Yeah.
don't know your pulse, you can't
Yeah.
regulate anything inside of your system.
Right.
So, as a specific example, what could they do? Just very
Hmm.
quickly. I think if a CEO is not having lunch with one of their employees from each one of those departments
Hmm.
on a regular basis and asking questions like, how are you doing? What's stressing you out? How's your family? How do you think we're doing as a company? What do you think sucks? And seriously, what do you think sucks? What do you think's great? What do you think we need to change so that we can be better? If they don't have a feedback loop like that, then
Yeah.
they're not functioning
Well,
like their own body.
I'm glad you're saying lunch because most people have these darn meetings and nobody says anything in those meetings, right?
Yeah, what do we really
Lunch is
accomplish
a
in
good
those
thing.
meetings?
Yes. Huh?
What do we really accomplish in a lot of meetings?
No,
We
they
probably,
don't.
yeah, we
Yeah.
could get rid of
Yeah.
50% of them
Yeah.
and still probably function at the same level.
Yeah. They're
Instead,
just a waste of
why not
time.
make them
Right.
count
Yeah.
by making them valuable? The cell structure, if it is healthy, allows a company to do well, allows a body to do well. When it is not, and a CEO doesn't know that, by the time they find out, there's a good chance it might be too late.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. That's good. I love that. So, what are some actionable steps that companies can take to start implementing your principles, like running, understanding the pulse, understanding the protection, the systems? I like the one that you just mentioned about having lunch and getting
Mhm.
that feedback loop. And
And it
you
doesn't,
didn't
and
even
I
say,
say,
right. And you didn't stop at asking them what's going on with payroll or whatever, but you're asking them what's going on with their family because that
mhm,
is how they show up. So that's good. Anyway, go ahead.
exactly. Yeah, I've never gone to a job and
Mhm.
not thought about my kids during the day.
Right, right, right.
So you're right. There is a whole person as a whole biological system that's part of a larger ecosystem blending into another ecosystem.
Hmm.
And that's why there has to be this understanding or this care.
Mm.
Another thing that I think is an actionable step is really apply what I call a biological audit. And if we really think about this, if you conduct a biological audit of the organization, which means you assess the health of the various systems, leadership, get some honest feedback about leadership. And here's a challenge. If you're asking people and they're not giving you honest answers, one, you probably need to call me because I can help you understand how to build rapport. When you build rapport, you build trust. And there's some very easy ways to do it. On the other hand, or call you rather, myself, either or. On the other hand, when they're assessing the health of the organization, they need to be transparent. Hey, look, you know what? I'll give you $100 gift card, but what I need from you is I need you to be honest with me. And I get it. I'm taking your time because here's what happens where I've tried this. Most of the employees won't take the gift card. They just love the opportunity to be able to give
Speak.
honest
Mm.
feedback.
Okay. Yeah.
How's communication? How are the lungs working? How's information being disseminated? Your oxygen goes through your entire body, and any part of it that doesn't get it dies.
Yeah.
If communication doesn't
Love
get to a
that.
part of the company, it dies. And in my book, I describe where communication is broken down. It's cost lives. It's cost billions of dollars to company when they get sued because they didn't include, oh, when we talk about breaches, most
Mhm.
security breaches are, I'm not going to say most, but a large part of them are not because somebody actually broke through the code. It was because A didn't communicate with B, didn't communicate with C, and
Mm.
something was left out.
Mm.
So
Okay.
if leadership doesn't understand how communication is really flowing in the company, maybe they're giving directives. And managers' jobs is just like the brain, right? You have different systems,
Mm.
directives. Managers' jobs is to interpret that so that they can then break that down to some applicability for the people doing the work. The interesting thing is, what if that information stops right here?
Mm.
What if it doesn't get here at all? And what
Mm.
if it gets here and now it looks like this? When what the CEO said or the leadership said was kind of like this.
Mm.
So if they don't understand what's killing innovation, things like that,
Great.
because they don't have that connected feedback loop, that's another actionable step is doing a
Mm.
biological audit. Here's
I
the
love
interesting
that.
thing.
Yeah, listen, this is actually pretty interesting. Yes, the lungs distribute oxygen to the entire body. And if the feet's not getting it or the
Mhm.
extremities are not getting it, then they will die. I love that. I love that. That's an excellent analogy. Wow. Okay.
There's a long list of companies that are unfortunately on that list of gone. Circuit
Yeah.
City, Kmart, Sears, we could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
CompuShare, yeah.
Right. Wow. That's interesting. So, wow, I love what you said in the beginning about you being in seven different careers. So, what inspired you to write this book now? Is it, oh, and before you go, I need you to tell the listeners about what is this 5 ways to die. I'm curious about that.
It's explained in the book. It's interesting because there's really only 5 ways that human beings die. One
Right,
is obviously cell destruction, and
right.
that may be the less gruesome of the others. You know, if you get into a car accident and your organs have some kind of massive movement with the force of you stopping and they
Uh,
separate, that's cell destruction, smashing, things
okay,
like that.
okay. All
So
right.
again, all of, I look at disease and talk about how disease and even senescence, which is the medical name for aging, what
Mm,
happens when a business ages? Does the
okay.
business, here's the interesting thing, a business is the only living entity that can live on
Forever. Yes,
when you and I are gone.
yes,
They can live
yes,
on.
yes.
So, yes, do
Mhm.
they age out? Because there are some stores. I don't know if you've ever been in a Kmart, but there's no store
Yes,
that looks like a Kmart around anymore. They
right.
aged out.
Yeah.
And what they didn't do was get back in and regenerate it by innovation.
Hmm.
That every business has the opportunity for the fountain of youth.
Mm. Well,
We
yeah,
haven't found it yet, but
yeah.
businesses can.
I love that. All right. So, yeah, so the question was what inspired you to write the book now? I threw in that five ways to die thing, but what inspired you to write the book?
I think there's several things that inspired me to write the book right now.
Hmm.
This has been a 7-year journey.
Hmm.
For the last 5 years, very engaged in research. The book has a lot of factual data in it because, again, I talk about cancer, I talk about other kinds of diseases, I talk about organ failure, I talk about just how the body over time degenerates,
Hmm.
and I needed to make sure that I understood that well enough to express it, and then I had to go back and have somebody validate that,
Right.
whether it was a medical doctor, a biologist, etc. So the inspiration is both a good time because when 26% of the American population is looking for employment,
Hmm.
there's a lot of stress out there. It
Right.
suggests to me when I just observe, a lot of posts on LinkedIn and a lot of posts on Facebook, which, it's interesting. People are not in a good mental frame when it comes to work. We do it because we
Hmm.
have to. That's how we survive.
Right. Right. Hmm.
Commerce is an essential part. Are we doing it happily?
Okay.
Many of us aren't, which means
Right.
companies don't have a good structure for them to work in. And that's a responsibility that they have. So I think the timing is one, right. Obviously it's going to be coming out later this year, hopefully. It'll make a great Christmas gift. I think the critical element is any time would be a good time for this book, actually.
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
easy read because all of us can relate to it. We are
Yes.
an
Yes.
organism. And all we have to do is
Yes.
just simply transpose easily our thinking
Hmm.
to what it's like in our work environment. And we can almost easily figure out, oh my gosh, the nose is sniffling. We got a cold in here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very good. Like I said, this is unique. Yes, it's unique. I love that. So I love the work that you did on that. And I'm pretty sure that all your 7 careers that you've had is in there somewhere because
Absolutely.
we learn things in order to share it. Okay. So, so you're saying that give our listeners the projected release date of your book, and how can listeners stay updated on its progress?
So I do have a projected date. I'm hopeful that
Hmm.
it remains the same and that we'll see the book come to publishing in late October. And again,
Okay.
in time for a launch for people to be able to send them out as Christmas gift. It's a
Okay.
great read. It's my best work. It's my third book, and it's entertaining, but it's fun learning. It's,
Mm-hmm.
it rekindles the understanding that we got when we were in high school in biology. And it just puts
Yeah.
it in perspective like, oh, you know what? I'm actually going to have to go through this cycle myself. So good
Right.
information. As far as catching up with me, the most prevalent place that I am is on LinkedIn. That's at Coach-Eaddy. And that's probably where I will be updating the progress the most. I normally do a lot of my posts off of YouTube if I'm doing music talkovers and then post them on LinkedIn as well. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, X, etc. And again, the music talkovers are expressions from the book,
Mm-hmm.
and literally what they are as a hypnotherapist, it's me using my voice to put information into people's heads in 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. Yes. Well, Mr. Master Coach, I love it. Mr. Doctor, I love it.
Yeah.
Yes, you
Having
have a
fun in
great.
life, having fun.
Yes, I love it. All right, guys. This was definitely a great conversation with Dr. Eaddy. So I will have a transcript of my conversation with Dr. Eaddy on the show page, which is myhelps.us. I will link out to his YouTube account and his LinkedIn profile. You don't have a website, right?
I do. I actually took it down on Monday and am
Okay.
having it revamped. And I have to
Okay.
do that occasionally because things have changed with the book. And the
Okay.
book is one of the major pushes on Rapid Change Group.
Right, right. Okay. All right. So when you have it, you can send it to me and
I will.
I'll update the show notes on that so people can get to it. But yeah, I enjoyed this conversation, and it's a great way to look at businesses. One of the things I took away from this conversation, organs and organisms, working. You talked about the lungs, you talked about the heart, you talked about the brain, the skin. I mean, yes, awareness is great. And if you can, bring your awareness that the health of your organization is just as important as the health of the body. We talked about homeostasis. So yes, it's a very good book. I mean, for any business person, any employee to pick up. And according to Christopher, you're also going to learn some things that you forgot from high school about the body. So I like
That's a
that.
guarantee. That is a guarantee. It was almost all new for me, but
That's right.
it's fully
Yes,
excited.
I like that. Okay, so keep in touch with him, and I will link out to the book when it's available, so that you guys can, pick it up for your Christmas gifts. So thank you, Christopher, for being on the show. Thank
My
you
pleasure.
guys for tuning in to this week's episode of Author's Corner. We were highlighting and showcasing the biology of business, why we should treat our businesses like our bodies. So as we wrap up, Christopher, any last words?
Yeah, number one, if you want an early read, there are some chapters that I can release. Listeners can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to connect with them. Or they can reach me at Christopher at Rapid Change Group. And lastly, I would say this: all of us are designed to succeed, and failure
Okay.
shouldn't feel good to any of us. Life's supposed to go well for us. When it doesn't, it's normally an indication that something wrong is wrong, just like in our bodies, but it's not something outside of us. It's something typically inside of us. And this book and what you do, Myrna, as well as myself, it really is about helping people to take control of certain parts of their existence once they understand it. Like literally understanding they're going to become what they think about. When I talk to CEOs and I see CEOs talk about money, 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 that means you're not talking about people, people, people.
Right.
So they don't understand the law of attraction, because we become what we think about. We attract more of what we focus on. And
Nice.
this book begins to release that and helps them understand there's an emotional guidance system that also has to be present in business because it's present in organisms.
Yes. I love it. I love it. Yes. Hey, I'm definitely going to get a copy. I'm not in the corporate world, but I'm the CEO of my own business here. So
Got to get it.
when you talked about being a CEO of, 10,000 or 10 people, you're also the CEO if you're an entrepreneur and running
Right.
your
It
own
only takes
business.
one.
That's
That's
right.
right.
Yes, you're a CEO of your own business. So I'm the CEO of mine here. All
Super,
right. Well,
super.
listen, yes. Well, listen, guys, thanks again for tuning in. Thank you, Christopher, for being on the show.
My
Until
pleasure.
next time, namaste.